is equality. In terms of women empowerment, we have all spoken about equal rights, facilities, and amenities at least once in our lives. But what no one talks about is the fact that these women have been at a deficit or have been suppressed since a very long time. So, to provide equality, we can't just give them the same rights as other genders, expect them to be at par. Now, the opposition might want to talk about reservations and defend equality, but putting reservation means that you're putting yourself in a position of power or authority, where you are allowing them to sit in examinations or job interviews, even if with a quota. What equality are we even talking about when 113 countries do not have laws to ensure equal pay? 104 countries make job off limits for women. 39 countries have laws that mean a daughter cannot inherit the same proportion of assets as a son. 17 countries limit the timings of when and how women can travel outside their house. According to a survey from the World Economic Forum, 108 years it will take us to fulfill this gender equality gap. These stats clearly further the point of the proposition, and perhaps it will be very sad if anyone tries to defend this issue by stating just a few examples of exceptional cases where men are falsely accused. Thank you.
Okay. Opposition, your opening statement.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. What do we mean by equity? Okay, gender equity and what is equitable would be decided to by the system. This is the same patriarchal system that we are trying to dismantle. So going to the system and asking for equity, asking for more resources, asking for more representation is making use of the same patriarchal system, and we are back to square one. The main tenet of feminism or women empowerment throughout history has been that women and men are on equal footing. Differential treatment between them is negatory to the established principles of equality. International humanitarian law, the conventions that countries sign with organizations like the United Nations do not recognize the term gender equity because it is used to negate and detach from the rights of people as a whole and not basically two genders. And generally speaking, equity is not possible in the practical sense. I'll give you an example. A glaring example was when the Supreme Court of India recently opened up jobs in the armed force of India for women, even in combat roles. But it stopped short of providing them provisions such as reservations or a separate provision that requires certain amount of women to be maintained on the payroll, because it is not possible under the legal ambit. It is not possible in the practical ambit. The entire premise of feminism or any women empowerment principle is that women are the same as men. Giving them special treatment, giving them a head start, giving them something more than the other populace is recognizing the fact that they are lacking in certain aspects, which is not the case at all. Women are equal to men. They can do all the jobs equal to men. Giving them special provision or recognition negates that and recognizes that fact in an indirect way, of course, that they are in fact weaker than men and they need more support in
Wrap up.
in terms of getting themselves at par. Therefore, the opposition firmly believes that women empowerment leads to equality and not equity. Thank you so much.
Okay, with that, now we head to the rebuttal round. Proposition, your first question.
Point of personal privilege. Moderator.
Okay. Yeah, sorry.
Sir, can the question to us be sent on the group chat itself? Because I might have issues hearing it as I have some connectivity problems.
I'll just rephrase it for you, but your first question to the opposition.
As in, it can be said it out loud and stated on the chat as well.
Yeah, sure. But your first question to the opposition. What's your first question to the opposition?
I'm
Yes,
going to
please.
say the question.
Yes.
If there are two guys, 5 feet and 6 feet tall respectively, and they have to see across a fence that's 6 feet 3 inches tall, and each are provided a 4 inches tall stool to stand over, the shorter guy gets no additional benefit. My point being, in what way is this equality and not equity, considering the fact that this is the current situation of women empowerment?
Keep your question short. What's your question exactly?
So I just gave an example of how women empowerment is.
What is your question?
In this situation, how is this equality and not equity?
Okay. Opposition, your answer.
You're right. This is not equity at all. This is equality because both of them have been given 4 inches tall stool, and the premise here is that you have to choose the best person for the job. There is no discrimination whether it is a woman or it is a man. If the girl is 6 feet tall and the guy is 5 feet tall, by all means the girl gets the job with the stool. This is not at all about equity. This is about equality, giving equal opportunities because both are the same. So you're right. This is not equity. This is equality.
Okay. Opposition, your first question to the proposition.
Okay. Since giving equity would mean differential treatment towards women as compared to men, do you concede the fact that women require more help because of their weakened position in society, biologically as well as sociologically speaking?
Okay. Proposition, your answer.
Can the question be sent in chat, please? Can the question please be sent in chat, please?
Should I type it out?
Yeah, just type it out. Drashti, you heard it, so if you want to, even you can answer.
I've heard the question in bits, so I'm going to answer that, but I just require the full question.
Proposition, the question is in the chat box, and I would please request you to answer it quickly because the time is elapsing.
All right. Thank you for your question, opposition. And the proposition would like to answer this question in a very simple manner, stating that the proposition's definition of equality is not something that is viable. Simply stating that equity is not something that deals with providing the deficit. It just means the equal distribution of amenities. Whereas when you talk about equality, it is what is meaning actually you're fulfilling the requirement of what the person or the suppressed needs. So hence, I would just like to answer this question with the simple fact, stating the question that do you concede the fact that equity would mean differential treatment to women? Yes, equity would mean that, but that does certainly not mean that it's giving an equality, because that's what's been happening in the country since a while now.
Okay. As due to time constraints, we cannot take any more further questions. We will directly straight move to the closing statements. Opposition, your first closing statement.
Yes, so in a nutshell, we have proven how women empowerment leads to equality, and that the prop's definition of equality is not actually viable. So as Dashi pointed out, that the example of stools, so equity basically represents, whenever we look at the picture, it represents three male individuals who are not, equally capable, standing on stools according to their needs. But when we talk about women, women are definitely not, weaker in any way, and that men have always had the upper hand, and the bias is just based because of the gender and not the capabilities. Thank you.
Okay. Proposition, your closing statement.
On this note, the proposition would like to end with a self-written poem. The world would be a better place if women wouldn't be used as slaves, if they did not respect women after they reach their graves. If we could make them understand this by God's grace, the world would be a better place. I reckon my point of view isn't accepted by much, as if they have the right to touch. This is something I won't ever understand. Women are supposed to be treated as goddesses on this land. It's a shame that they have been raped, trafficked, left on the streets. Is this what we've been brought up with? What is their joy? What is their treat? So I take the stance to spill the words that this world needs to hear, because this materialistic world won't ever change, and that's my biggest fear. This ain't for a few of us, it's for the entire human race to make this world a better place. The statistics that were brought into notice of the House on the fact that there is nothing that to justify the absence of equality whatsoever tells us how poorly handled and inconsiderate we are when it comes to the matter of equality for women. Because if it will take 108 years to fulfill this gender parity with the current laws, rights, reservations, and facilities in place, then there is surely something incorrect about the definition of equality that the opposition is trying to state. Although the proposition agrees that we are on the road to emancipating women, they are only aiding to equity and not equality. Thank you.
Okay, with that we end the debate. But before we end the debate, the proposition has raised the point of order. Opposition is that the opposition in the closing statement has favored the topic and not spoken exactly against the topic. So my duty to just inform the judges regarding this. Okay, with that we conclude the debate.
Okay, can you repeat what point of order that was? I couldn't hear you.
Proposition. I just said the point of order in the closing statement. The opposition was favoring the topic and not talking against the topic. Basically, you're the opposition. You have to talk against the topic. Yeah. With that, we conclude the debate. The results will be announced soon. You all can leave the meeting now.
Thank you.
Sorry, are we supposed to leave the meeting now?
Yeah. ठीक है नेक्स्ट टाइम तू ही बोलना मत बोल कभी
Next, Anish and Suvedita.
Yes, sir. This team is Sportscom and CQ, right? Okay, participants requested to start their camera and not put your cameras off and Sir, topic is prisoners have legal right to vote, and proposition is votes, the CQ is opposition. Now, Suvedita, you're from which committee?
So what it is?
I'm so sorry. Okay. And Anish, you're from sports. Looking as well. Okay, the sports is not here yet. So, for the opposition, what are the opposition? I'm the moderator. इसके बाद चलेंगे.
I'm assuming behavior is from social media.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm
Then we tell you to join, then join that. That's right. Yeah, let's see. Yeah.
ब्रो स्पोर्ट्स सॉन्ग में एक लोगों का नाम बताना फिर तो उनको ऐड करेंगे
Okay. So we start now. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Intercommittee Debate 2020. The topic for today is prisoners should get a voting right. We will begin the opening statement that will last for 1.5 minutes, first delivered by the proposition and then the opposition. Then we will head to the rebuttal round that will last for approximately 4 minutes. That will be in a question answer format, first asked by the proposition and then the opposition. After that, we will end with the closing statement that will last for another 1.5 minutes, first delivered by the opposition and then the proposition. A warning bell will be rung 30 seconds prior to the stipulated time. Two bells after the time has elapsed, and the participants are expected to wrap up in the next 15 seconds. Participants are urged you to refrain from crosstalk, use your personal pronouns, to not make any new points in your closing statements, and just summarize the debate, and to urge you to maintain full decorum. Let's begin the debate. Proposition, your opening statement.
Yeah, good afternoon. Today, I, Somesh Jadwani and Neha Parab will be representing the Sports Committee. We will be speaking for the topic, should prisoners be given voting rights? Here are our opening statements. According to Article 326 of the Indian Constitution, all citizens of India above the age of 18 have the right to vote. A prisoner is a citizen of the country above all, and not giving them rights to vote is unchecking a box to citizenship. Also, the current governing body has a direct impact on the life of a prisoner during and after he has served his sentence. So he must have a say in who calls the shots on his behalf. Being in prison may lead a prisoner to lose connect with his identity, and giving him the right to vote will allow him to reconnect with society and give him some purpose, to say the least. There is no social downside to allowing a prisoner to vote. Under the current system, the citizens who have been detained and kept in custody and are awaiting trial do not get the right to vote. At times, this process can take up to a year before they are convicted by a judiciary, and in this entire process, the person is not given his or her right to vote as well. Finally, on average, the prisons in India are operating at 118% capacity, which is way over the feasible limit. And the conditions of these prisons is pathetic at best. There is no running water, proper hygiene isn't observed, and the prisons aren't maintained whatsoever. In such circumstances, a prisoner must be provided with proper representation, and to make sure that he isn't deprived of his basic human rights, we must allow them to vote. I'm wrapping up on this point. Thank you so much.
Okay. Opposition, your opening statement.
Good afternoon to the House in attendance. The opposition today comprises of I, Swaditya Mukherjee, and Anish Sudan, presenting arguments against the premise that prisoners should have the legal right to vote. The paramount fact to be realized is that prisoners are not arbitrarily incarcerated. Being citizens of the state, people are bound to a social contract to follow the laws of the state in exchange for the protections given. The unilateral breach of it by committing a crime voluntarily puts the person out of the social order. Any government has an obligation to those who obey laws to punish those who break laws. And a direct repercussion of the same is the fact that their right to vote is taken away. Also, I wish to state what Chief Justice of the Delhi High Court D.N. Patel observed in a hearing which rejected the premise. He cited the 1997 Supreme Court hearing which stated that a prisoner incarcerated as a result of his own conduct cannot claim equal freedom. I merely referred to these two instances to present to the House the fact that the judiciary of India have time and again rejected the premise post rigorous consideration. An individual that willfully committed a crime is well aware of the consequences of the same, and so cannot be allowed to be a participant of an election that elects the person making the same laws. With that, I would like to wrap up the opposition's statements. Thank you.
Okay. With that, we end with the opening statements. We move ahead with the rebuttal round. First question, which will be given by the proposition to the opposition. So, proposition, your first question.
Right.
First question to the opposition is that out of order, social order as well, but they follow a judicial proceedings when in prison while serving the sentence. So once they're doing that as lawfully abiding citizens, how do you suggest that they should be deprived, or why should they be deprived of their voting rights when in prison following the lawful proceedings?
Well, I
One
would-
second, moderator, just to clarify the question, it was not very audible. The proposition is asking that post the incarceration, how else we would like to deprive them of their rights. Is that the question?
Yes, during their sentence, as prisoners during their sentence.
Okay.
Thank you.
Opposition, your answer.
Yeah. So what I wish to say is an individual that has been convicted of a crime has essentially opted out of a social contract and obligation the individual has with the government. The individual has willfully disobeyed the law and has lost his right to liberty and the right to vote. The loss of right to vote, in fact, acts as a deterrent to prevent future crimes because the individual now understands the privilege of being a free and lawful citizen. Thank you.
Okay. Opposition, your first question to the proposition.
Right. My respected opponent, you stated that prison is running at a capacity of 118%, which is obviously higher than the stipulated 100%. I want to ask, how is it in the ambit of this debate? Because we aren't exactly talking about prisoner welfare rights. For that, they have the prisoner ombudsman. Why are we talking about voting rights? Why are we talking about capacity of a prison?
Keep your question short and to the point.
My question is, why are we talking about prison capacity in the debate about voting rights for prisoners?
Okay. Proposition, your answer.
Yeah, my response to that question is that here in my opening statement, I mentioned about the rights of a person and that a prisoner is a citizen of the country and must be given the basic human rights. The right includes having a safe place and not living in pathetic conditions as they are. And I'm tying this up with the fact that they need representation to make sure that this injustice doesn't carry on with them inside the prison. Thank you.
So, Mr. Moderator,
No crosstalk allowed. No crosstalk allowed. No crosstalk allowed. Okay. Yeah. Due to time constraints, we cannot take any more questions. So we will head to the closing statements. Opposition, your closing statement.
The proposition were quite invalid for under trials. In fact, the speedy trials of Supreme Court does not take long. And the last rhetoric question I wish to post out there is, do the people of this country as a whole want to give the power to shape our democracy to the very people who are put in this disposition by the actual legal system of our country? Thank you.
Okay. Proposition, your closing statement.
Strongly upholding the spirit of our Constitution and ensuring the basic citizenship rights, prisoners should be given voting. As long as prisoners one sentence for the crimes convicted of, they shouldn't be deprived of adult suffrage, as it widely has an impact on their life sentence post sentence. And pragmatically, declining right to vote for prisoners, statistically 470,000 as of 2019, has no reverse aftermaths on the society. In order to make our society a better place to live in, rehabilitating prisoners has been one of the primordial concerns, and the Grant of Parole India Act is administered by the rules made under the Prison Act 1894 and Prison Act 1900, which backs up the same. Hence, enabling prisoners to vote, choosing their representative directly has an impact on policies introduced, schemes, working environment, etc., post their sentence. It is essential to retain the identity of prisoners as citizens of the country, giving them right to vote, which would enable them to be in loop with their society beyond their bars. Depriving convicted prisoners or on trial prisoners of voting rights is a melancholy in the eyes of our judicial system, and all prisoners should be provided by their voting rights. Universal adult franchise is one of the most essential and stated in our constitution as well. So we must not go against it before proposing anything else. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. With that, we conclude the debate. Thank you so much. Please don't leave the meeting till we ask you to. Judges, you all can send the results to my JSEC, then I'll announce it shortly. Wait
Wait,
for the go from
I'll
Tanmay.
text two. I'll text two in the chat. Okay.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Intercommittee Debate 2020. The topic for today's debate is the Statue of Unity is a symbol of unity. We will first begin with the opening statements that will be lasting for 1.5 minutes, first delivered by the proposition, followed by the opposition. After that, we will head on into the rebuttal round that will last for a total of 4 minutes. This will proceed in a question-answer format, wherein the first question will be asked by the proposition, followed by the opposition. Finally, we will end with the closing statements that will again last for 1.5 minutes, first delivered by the opposition and then by the proposition. A warning bell will be rung 30 seconds prior to the end of the stipulated time, 2 bells after the time has elapsed, and participants will be expected to wrap their speech up within the next 10 to 15 seconds. Participants, I strongly urge you from refraining with any crosstalk, the use of personal pronouns, and to not make any new points in your closing statements, and simply just summarize the entirety of the debate in your closing statement. I also urge you to maintain full decorum, and let's begin with the debate. Proposition, your opening statement.
Good afternoon. We, the proposition, firmly believe that the Statue of Unity acts as a symbol of unity. So, what is the Statue of Unity? It is a 182-meter tall metal statue of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. It stands as the tallest statue in the world. However, this debate is not about the statue's height or expense. This debate is about whether or not the statue lives up to its name. For that, let's get to know a little bit about Sardar Patel. He was one of the strongest advocates of secularism and equal treatment. In the intense violence that erupted as a consequence of the partition of India in 1947, Sardar Patel led organizing of relief camps, providing emergency supplies, and visited border areas to encourage peace. Here, every Muslim should feel that he is an Indian citizen and has equal rights as an Indian. Those were his beliefs. Patel personally persuaded 526 princely states to join the new India and prevented a great country from being split after independence. Now, to the statue itself. It is estimated to remain as it is for 1,000 years. It will continue to contribute to the national income of India through tourism for the next 10 centuries. In the first year of approximately 29 lakh people have come to see this marvel. It has helped generate revenue for the low-income district of Narmada. The construction of this monument, which has been strategically placed, ensures better distribution of wealth. This statue could have been constructed in any commercial hub, but it was done in Narmada district, one of the most backward ones in Gujarat. As a result, now the area is being redeveloped. Yesterday, the Sardar Patel Zoological Park was inaugurated. This was a public-private partnership, and L&T has spent the major part of the money in constructing the statue. The project has given so many skilled and unskilled laborers, irrespective of the caste, a chance to work on history. Thank you.
Opposition, your opening statement.
The negligence of a few could easily send a ship to the bottom. But if it has the wholehearted cooperation of all on board, it can be safely brought to the port. This statement was once quoted by Mr. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, and it suggests he was one of the many freedom fighters who aided in the independence of our country. He wholeheartedly devoted his life to every step of the struggle, from uplifting the farmers, empowering women, and leading most of the civil disobedience and quit India movements to unifying India. Belittling so many achievements of his to only one would be erroneous. This is why we believe a Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel statue should not be limited to being called or to symbolize unity. Even in the unification of India, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, although prominent, wasn't the only individual who was a part of the process. As quoted by him, it takes the wholehearted cooperation of all on board, and similarly, there were many other individuals, some prominent, others not so, who also devoted the same energy to the movement. When talking about symbolizing unity, Sardar Patel shouldn't be the only personality to do so. There are at least 15 statues commemorating Pandit Nehru. 70 countries around the globe have a statue of Mahatma Gandhi for almost every achievement of theirs. But Sardar Patel, who was undoubtedly at par with these fighters, has only one statue, which also only signifies a fraction of his entire legacy. I'd like to conclude by saying that this statue is made to honor Sardar Patel and all the great work he has done for our country. We should be symbolizing the statue of so many more things and not only one. Thank you.
So please wrap up.
Yeah.
We're now moving into the rebuttal round. The first question will be asked by the proposition. So the proposition, your question.
All right. I would like to ask, in your speech, you mentioned that Sardar Patel is not it's not the only statue that could have been done. But is it not true that there's been a history of communal violence in Gujarat, and Sardar Patel, who was from Gujarat, would be the best choice for it?
Can I answer that?
Yes, ma'am.
We never denied that Sardar Patel hasn't unified the things in our country in various ways, for Hindus, for Muslims, for all the monarchies. And we mentioned it in our speech that he has unified our country. But the other thing that was before that, if you properly heard it, was he has done so much more for the country. I mean, in the ending, we couldn't mention it properly. But what our point was that he is worth so much more, first of all, about unification. It wasn't only one of the things that he had done. He has unified the country in so many various ways, but he has done so many other things also. Like the civil disobedience acts that were passed, the Quit India movement that were passed. It wasn't only led by
please
Mahatma
wrap up.
Sardar
Please wrap
Vallabhbhai
up your
Patel
answer, please.
Yeah, so my point is, he has done a lot for Gujarat. He has done a lot for their farmers. He's empowered a lot of women, and there should be a statue for him. But that statue does not need to signify or symbolize only unity.
Ma'am, please wrap up. Please wrap up. Please keep your question and answer short, both proposition and opposition. Opposition, your question to the proposition.
Our question to the proposition will be that Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, his ideologies were so much more than unification. And today, if you were present, monarchies isn't a concern right now in our country. There are so many other things that are, people are so disintegrated and disunited. Why he would have united, or he would have done a much better way
question.
Unification.
Ma'am, please keep it short and please ask
how
very
does the
short.
statue help? How does the statue help that objective?
Okay, as I stated earlier, the Narmada, it is built on the Narmada district, which is a very low-income district, and is also, there are a lot of tribal area, there's farmlands. So this, before the statue was made, a lot of jobs were given to tribal areas, a lot of jobs were provided. There's a museum, there's a botanical garden right now. So I think when people are happy, I think communal tension will be less. And that is something I'm sure he can get behind.
Thank you, sir. Proposition, your question.
Yeah, I have a question. They talk more about how Sardar Patel had united and what all work he has done. And so the main question is, do you want the Statue of Unity to be removed? Is that what you want?
No.
It's like you don't want the statue to be there. It's like you want the statue to be named for other things as well.
Sir, again, short, concise questions and refrain from cross. Ma'am, would the opposition like to answer this?
Yes. Not once we have mentioned that the statue shouldn't have been made. We keep in our house itself, we keep the statues of our gods, or we put photos of our ancestors because we respect them, we honor them, and that's what they have done so much for us. And the statue does symbolize so much more than unity. You do not have to name it the Statue of Unity. It does not symbolize unity. You can name it the Iron Man of India, or you can name it any other thing. Why unity? I just limit
Why
all of
doesn't
the
it
greatness to just
symbolize
one
that?
word.
Sir, no crosstalk, sir.
Okay.
It symbolizes so much more than that. You cannot, a person doing so much for his country, and you just making one statue and you symbolizing it only for one of his work is actually disrespecting all of the other work that he did. You're not even considering everything else that we mentioned in our speech.
Thank you, ma'am. We will now move into the closing statements, first delivered by the opposition and then by the proposition for 90 seconds. So, opposition, your closing statement. Opposition, your closing.
Opposition. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I heard
opposition.
I'm so sorry. Concluding this debate, we hope we have put across our point that a Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel statue should not symbolize just unity, but the achievement of the Indian engineers, craftsmen, architects, and workers. In these times, although unifying monarchy may not be a concern for our country, unifying the people who are disintegrated or disunited on the basis of various grounds in the current days, they should be unified. There should be, maybe if you want to symbolize unity for our country, there are so many other ways to bring a feeling of togetherness, to bring a feeling of oneness that will actually serve the objective of his ideology. I'm sure some people might agree with me on this, that if Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel was still in our presence, he would have kept working towards the unification of our country in other ways, of other people in this country, and he would have done so much more for the country. He would have brought in so many more changes because he has done so much more. We are only limiting all of his greatness to one word, unity, and that is not fair to him. Thank you.
Thank you. The proposition, your closing statement.
Yeah. We would like to firmly reiterate our stance on this topic by sharing a short story about Patelji. In 1922, in a session of the Indian National Congress, the Sardar Patel had to give a speech. A separate enclosure for the Dalits was provided. Instead of occupying a seat earmarked for him in the main enclosure, he straight away proceeded to the enclosure meant for Dalits and sat there and delivered his speech for that enclosure. He got his start as a sanitation commissioner, and he was a man of the people. That is the reason he was called Sardar. In June 1947, when somebody suggested to him that India should be declared a Hindu state with Hinduism as the official religion, Sardar Patel rejected the suggestion. Sardar Patel strongly endorsed Mahatma Gandhi's vision for a secular India. He said this country will be a home to everybody. With that in mind, the construction of that statue took place. This statue restores Sardar's place in the pantheon of greats. The statue is a symbol of our engineering and tech capabilities. The statue is a manifestation of Sardar Patel's love and talent and spirituality. The statue is an expression of New India. It is a symbol of unity and integrity. To make this statue, farmers from across the country donated their old farming equipment. This is a massive symbol of pride and hope, and it will ease the hatred between religion and unite us as fellow proud Indians, just like Patelji would have wanted. Because let's face it, if there was ever going to be a giant metal statue of somebody, it should be the one we call the Iron Man of India. Thank you.
Thank you. And with this, we conclude our debate. Dear judges, I would like to bring to your notice that both sides have introduced new points into their closing statements. The opposition has given us 2 new points, whereas the proposition has given us 6 new points. So I would urge the judges to keep that in mind while scoring the same. Thank you for participating. We will let you know the results in a short time.
Don't leave the meeting until we tell you to. Shazin, the bell is audible, right?
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, go.
Good afternoon, everyone. I warmly welcome you to the Inter-Committee Debate 2020. The topic for the current debate is Secularism in India is a Farce. We will begin with the opening statements that will last for 1.5 minutes or 90 seconds, first delivered by the opposition, followed by the opposition. After that, we will enter into the rebuttal round that will last for a total of 4 minutes. That will proceed in a question-answer session, wherein the first question will be asked by the proposition and the next by the opposition, and so on. Finally, we will be ending the debate with a closing statements round, which will again last for 1.5 minutes, first delivered by the opposition and then the proposition. A few general instructions. A warning bell will be rung at 30 seconds prior to the end of your stipulated time.
2 bells after the time has elapsed, after which you are expected to wrap up your speech within the next 15 seconds. Participants, again, I urge you to refrain from crosstalk, using any personal pronouns, not making any new points in your closing statements, and simply summarizing the entirety of the debate in your closing statement. And again, urge you to maintain full decorum. With that being said, let's begin the debate. Proposition, your opening statement, please.
Good afternoon. I, Sakhar Chaudhary and Nisha Kini, today will represent the Alumni Association and we will speak for the motion. The word secular was added into the preamble of the Constitution in the 42nd Amendment, effectively turning it into a secular republic. But secularism in India today is a facade, while in the real non-secular nature of this nation continues to discriminate on the basis of religion. We believe India is not a secular country, rather it's the exact opposite. In a truly secular country, all citizens are subjected to the same laws regardless of the religion. However, in India, people of different religious beliefs are covered by different laws. While Hindus, Sikhs, and Buddhists are covered by the Hindu Code of Bills like the Hindu Marriage Act and Hindu Succession Act, Muslims are covered by Muslim personal laws, and Christians are covered by Christian personal laws. So Hindu, Christians, and Muslims inherit property differently and have different rules of marriage, divorce, adoption, and among others. The fact that a secular country has different laws for its citizens based on religion and had these laws in place way before declaring itself a secular republic, a sign of its intent. Now shedding light to the Constitution Amendment Act, commonly known as CAA. The act blatantly discriminated against Muslims as it left it out in religious on the list of religions. Immigration laws fast-tracked path becoming the Indian citizens. It only goes to violate the right of equality, but the mere fact that religion is being used to distinguish between the people who come under this law in the first place is a clear sign that India is
wrap up, please.
Secularism in India is a clear facade since many laws within the constitution are religiously motivated.
Sir, wrap up. Sir, please wrap up.
Done.
Thank you. Opposition, your opening statements.
Yes. They say secularism is a joke in India, and I strongly oppose it. Whether it's Chak De India, IPL, or simply my MBA Tech CS class, they show the real street-level inclusiveness of India. Secularism is one such foundational idea. The Hindus, Christians, and Muslims who inhabit countries have shed their blood in post-independent wars for India. As a result, religious pluralism is a strength of Indian society and defines it. In the words of P.B. Gajendra Gadkar, a former Chief Justice of India, secularism is defined as the state does not owe loyalty to any particular religion. As such, it is not irreligious or anti-religious. It gives equal freedom to all religions. My opposition will say that secularism is just an exploited word and some politicians are trying to brainwash and spread hate crimes. It's illogical to think that a country so huge will have the same opinion. If there are such people, then there are others who are fighting for secularism, and there is the youth who knows what is right. The essence of secularism is always there. To end, I would like to say that मेरे सीने में नहीं तो तेरे सीने में सही, मेरे सीने में नहीं तो तेरे सीने में सही, हो कहीं भी आग लेकिन आग जलनी चाहिए. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. With this, we move into the rebuttal round. The first question will be asked by the proposition. Proposition, your question.
Our opponent rightly said that there is no state religion, right? And if there is no state religion, how do you explain the subsidies that you give to only the people who go for the Hajj Yatra, but not to the people who go to Amarnath, not to the people who go to other Kumbh Mela and all of those yatras? How do you explain that?
Ma'am, the institutions that come under the government, wholly come under the government, are not funded by the government on any religious basis. The institutions that are partially funded by the governments are there. To back this up, I would like to say that the government has established statutory institutions to regulate and financially administer Islamic Central Council, the historical Hindu temples, the Buddhist monasteries, and certain Christian religious institutions. The government and the judiciary has been fair in view of all religions.
Please keep your answer short. Thank you. The opposition, your question?
I just had a question. Can I comment on that?
No.
Yeah, hi, sorry. My dear proposition, we had a question, like in rightly said in the opening sentence, one of y'all said that it is basically funded by the oppositions. One second. Lily, can you take the question?
Yeah, I'll go for it. The thing is, what do you have to say about the fact that all Indians are allowed to profess and propagate the religion of their choice, are allowed to apply for government institutions, are allowed to apply for the army, irrespective from where they come from or what religion do they follow?
You're right. All citizens are allowed the same fact, but the fact that when a Muslim citizen is allowed to join the army, he is supposed to shave his beard, while a Sikh citizen is allowed to keep his beard and is allowed to have ranks, while it is given in the army that you cannot have a rank if you're not Sikh and you have to shave your beard when you enter the army. How is that not secular?
Yes.
Ma'am, can I answer that?
Yes, please.
Sir, I asked a question, what are your views, and you actually turned that upon me. Sir, I think the fact that they are in the army is far more important than whether it's keeping the beard or the hair and the things. Are you getting my point?
Okay, thanks. That's it. Sir, if you would like to give a more clear answer as to what the question was asked, please do so, else we move on to the next question.
I would like to tell my opposition that the fact that Sikhs are allowed to keep their beard is because it is religious. It is believed that it is a religious intent that a Sikh should not shave their beard, and that is the only reason they are allowed to keep it. While Muslims are not allowed to keep it, or any other religion are not allowed to keep it.
Okay, thank you. So, considering the paucity of time, we're going to have to end the rebuttal round now. We're now moving on into the closing statements. Opposition? In
the closing statement, I would like to say, it is rightly said in the Article 14 of the Constitution of India, 1949. It is said that equality before the law, the state shall not deny any person the equality before the law or the equal protection of laws within the territory of India. Prohibition of discrimination on the grounds of religion, I quote, religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth. And rightfully said by Swami Vivekananda. He quoted that secularism, that it is based on the faith and the beliefs of oneness and unity amongst the people of India who believe in secularism and oneness and celebrate all festivals in unionism. And secularism is what sets our country apart from the rest of the world, may it be a Bengali speaking Bangla or a Muslim doing his daily namaz. In the end, the country does stand as one proud nation, singing the national anthem in unison. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The proposition, closing statements.
Yes. So we would like to conclude with saying that according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, the term secularism means that it should not have a role in the government or any public parts of society or education. However, in India, religion targets almost every single thing. You can see that the various laws, as stated by the opposition, the various laws are different for different religions. In a truly secular country, every law is the same for every religion. Since it's rightfully stated that we are not a one-state religion, which means that we represent various religions, various cultures, different languages. So mustn't the laws also be the same for each and every religion? Why different laws for different things? Also about the subsidies that I talked about in my question. How is it fair that you allow subsidies to only one? And also the other thing that they talked about, the security. Many of the critics would say that the intensive security provided Amarnath and Kumbh Mela. I would like to end this by saying that providing security to your citizens is a moral responsibility and is not a favor. Thank you.
Ma'am, with this, we come to the end of our debate. I would like to point out two things to the judges. Firstly, the proposition has made a factual inaccuracy in their statement when they say that the Hajj is the only place that has subsidies from the government. That is not true. Amarnath has it as well. This was in place in 2018. Secondly, the proposition and the opposition have made two new points in their closing statements. So I hope that the judges keep that in mind. Thank you so much. Kindly don't leave unless you're asked to. And yeah, thank you.
Actually, there
Okay, guys, let's begin. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Intercommittee Debate 2020. Now we've reached the semifinals round. The topic for today is all places of worship should be taxed. We will begin the opening statement that will last for 2.5 minutes, first given by the proposition and then the opposition. We will then head to the rebuttal round now, which will be approximately for 10 minutes. First question given by the proposition and then the opposition. Then we'll finally head to the closing statements, which will again last for 2.5 minutes, first given by the opposition and then the proposition. A warning bell will be rung 30 seconds prior to the stipulated time. 2 bells after the time has elapsed and the participants are expected to wrap up in the next 15 seconds. Participants are urged you to refrain from crosstalk, use of personal pronouns, to not make any new points in your closing statement, just summarize everything that you mentioned in your debate, and urge you to maintain full decorum. Let's begin the debate. Proposition, your opening statement.
Greetings to the moderators, the opposition, and the audience in attendance. The proposition today, inclusive of I, Anish Susan, and Suwadat Mukherjee, will be providing arguments in support of the agenda for discussion. All places of worship should be taxed. The statements will be in context of the Indian government. Constitutes under a democratic government have to be treated equally, and provision of financial benefit to one indicates the perspective that one particular constituent is more important than the other, which is not a part of what democracy is held on. The tax exemption is merely a benefit carried from over the past when religious institutions, apart from serving as state authorities, were staunch promoters and conservators of religion. The Constitution declares India as a secular state with the ideology of equidistance from all religions is followed, and so all religious institutions should be taxed as just separate entities. While it is observed that in the nation, a lot of majority community religious institutions are taxed while others aren't due to the involvement of the government and the administration, which ensures that about 60 to 70% of the income is used for non-temple or administrative purposes and various popular schemes run by the government. This makes them ineligible for tax exemption, which states at least 85% of the income must be used for charitable purposes. This directly goes against the principle of secularism and equality. Furthermore, the Indian politician Subramanian Swamy has mentioned how a Sri Rangan temple in South India paid about 18.56 crores to the government for administrative fees, and that included the audit fees, administration fees, the salaries to government officials, while the priests and those of service institution within the temple itself were not paid anything and had to depend on the offerings of the devotees. Thus, the administration of government serves no purpose for self-care and upkeep, and so taxing is the only way to go ahead. Temples and other reverend places of worship in India own vast tracts of land, which, if taxed, would help in relieving the national debt to an extent. Places of worship usually require large areas of land, which are not taxed and often provide the services 24/7. The Shashwat Committee in 2011 found out that nationwide WAQF properties constitute a land bank worth of 1.2 lakh crores Indian rupees and could have generated annual returns of 12,000 crore Indian rupees. Places of worship receive large amounts of donations. However, the non-taxation of places of worship in effect means non-regulation of the same, which could lead to high misuse of wealth, which may be diverted to the personal accounts of the trustees and administration government officials. They may also act as fronts for money laundering as revealed by certain probes on media outlets in India. The taxation for places of worship can be done in such a way that only the segments of institutions that are rightfully liable will be able to pay their dues to the government. The institutions should be able to deduct based on the actual charitable actions they provide for citizens. And the temple land property must be levied the tax proportional to the income which isn't used for charitable purposes, while the government should have the ability to scrutinize and audit all their financial activities and only such activities to ensure the proper accordance to all laws and regulations in place. Thank you.
Opposition, your opening statement.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, I would like to accept the fact that, if we tax places of worship, there will be a lot of, capital infused into the country's economy. But there is a slight problem with this. The moment religious money starts entering the system, the separation between the state and the church, figuratively in this sense, in cases of India, say the separation between the church, between the state and the temple would erode. The moment these temples and places of worship start paying taxes, they get a say in policy, they get a say in how their money should be used, and it erodes the entire principle and tenet of secularity enshrined in constitutions across much of the developing and the developed world. Secondly, the proposition quite mentioned that certain huge temples and other religious complexes pay a lot of administrative fees to the government. But I would like to point out that all major temples are run by Devasam boards or certain administrative boards that are constituted by an act of charter by the state legislature. So in retrospect, it is the government running the entire complex, and it is therefore their duty to provide, say, amenities such as electricity and security. And these things cost money, and these things, because they shouldn't be charged to the public exchequer, they take an administrative fee out of their anyway, moving on, the tax exemption given to these places of worship is for the public good. It is for them to keep the charitable costs down and to affect as many people as possible. A lot of marginalized people are dependent on these temple economies as well as the subsidized food or welfare, etc., that they provide for their daily well-being. A tax exemption to these is not a subsidy to religion and therefore not attacking secularity at all. It is constitutional. It is held up by the US Supreme Court. It is held up by the Supreme Courts in Europe as well as India. And principle of severability applies across the world for all law-abiding nations. Not taxing these places of worship allows us to keep religion separate from the state, because the moment these temples, mosques and churches start paying taxes, there'll be a list saying this temple is the highest taxpayer, this so and so place of worship is the least taxpayer. It leads to gentrification of the minority.
Wrap up.
It leads to therefore not taxing these places of worship would allow us to uphold the secularity as well as the separation of religion and state. Thank you so much.
Okay. With that, we end the opening statement. Now we head to the rebuttal round. The first question, proposition.
Right. So the opposition talks about upholding the ideology of secularism in India, which is apparently intact till date. Firstly, the speaker had recognized the existence of the Devasam boards controlled by governments. That itself is a violation of secularism. The government is interfering in religious
Don't explain
matters.
your point. Just stick to the question.
Okay, just a question. As the speaker mentioned, it is apparently secular in India. However, there are multiple instances and cases which say that it is non-secular. How can you defend the fact that by doing the taxation, it apparently becomes non-secular now when there are several activities that are already non-secular in nature?
Opposition, your answer.
Okay, yeah. Just because certain issues are not handled ideally doesn't mean that you go in and add fuel to the fire. The point is, the moment these places of worship start putting in money into the system, as I said, there'll be certain institutions that contribute more and there'll be certain institutions that contribute less. In a democracy which follows the principle of majority, the say of the institutions contributing more to the system would be taken in accordance rather than the people who contribute less. Not to mention the fact that India does not have equitable distribution in terms of religion. The majority is Hindu, the minorities are Muslims. Therefore, it is law of large numbers. There'll be more Hindu institutions than more, say, Muslim or churches. Therefore, the secularity is not upheld when you tax these institutions, because the majority automatically gets a say and there is no level playing field. That is it.
Yeah. Okay. Your question to the proposition.
Okay. Yeah. So the proposition mentioned that by taxing these institutions, secularity would be upheld. But how would you ensure equitable allocation of resources based upon the amount of revenue given by different institutions across the religious spectra?
Proposition, your answer.
Yeah. So as mentioned in my earlier statement, firstly, taxation is proportional to the revenue that is generated minus the charitable work that is done. So firstly, it is a slab-based system that's proportional to the revenue, right, depending on the size of the establishment. Secondly, it is secular in nature because currently it is not secular, wherein certain communities have to pay a certain amount of tax and some don't. That is why it is secular in nature. That is the reasoning for why it is secular, because right now all will have to pay, and charitable trust or amount of money used for charity is not considered under taxation. It's all of the assets that are immovable or movable that belong to the institution or establishments.
Okay. Proposition, your question to the opposition.
The opposition speaks of how the play of money leads to lack of secularism, and how the majority community is only majority one over here, and how Muslims are the minorities while their population is 500 million. I wish to understand how you define a minority in India, where Muslim population is 500 million, about half. Please just go about that.
Opposition, your answer.
This is not just India in question, but to answer with the Indian perspective, it is a well-known fact that Hindus are in the majority as compared to Muslims or other communities in India. It is a well-known fact in politics that the Hindu will prevails over that of minorities. We see that happening on news channels and on the daily basis always. Therefore, you go to any court, okay, you pick up any rule book, they'll say that the person who's contributing the most should be given access to resources more than the person giving, say, less amount of resources. If Hindu temples start paying taxes on all of their incomes, they'll surely be higher than the mosques and the churches or the synagogues put together. And the government, even though it may not be their will, is bound to support them and allocate them more resources in proportion as compared to the other institutions of other minorities in India. Just because they're 500 million doesn't mean the
That's not the question. Is not to the point. The debate is based on all places of worship should be taxed. It does not matter. Your question is very irrelevant. If you have any other question, I'll be able to take it. But this question will not be taken.
Okay, how would you ensure that the separation between religious institutions and the state not erode if we start taxing these institutions?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Answer the question.
Firstly, in the context of the Indian government, secularism is not interpreted as a separation of state and religion. It is equidistant from religion, and it was acknowledged when the very constitution was drafted. Although the constitution contains the word secular, the current state, as you have over and over stated, is the involvement of government in the temple boards. That itself is a lack of secularism. What we are propagating is the involvement of government only in the financial aspect to regulate their incomes and no other means. Taxation would provide a sort of furthering to the idea of secularism, because all community establishments will have to pay some amount to the government instead of just a few. Be it minority, majority, everyone has to pay. That's all I wish to say.
With that, we conclude the rebuttal round. We'll head to the closing statements. Opposition, your closing statement.
Yeah, so conclusively, we have proven that worship places should not be taxed at all because, firstly, it inhibits charitable prospects. They earn their tax exemption by contributing to public good. Secondly, it increases the cost of cooperation for these people of worship, for these places of worship, and it would therefore hamper a lot of people who depend on it. The poor and disadvantaged people relying on assistance from their local worship places would suffer if they were to lose their tax exemption. People have a right on how to practice religion and how to run it. And therefore, it would erode the autonomy of religious institutions if they were taxed with government control. Thank you.
Okay. Proposition, your closing statement.
Yeah. We, the proponents, wish to draw closure to this discussion, stating that taxation of places of worship is an act that does not go against the spirit of the Constitution or Indian culture in any manner, whilst ensuring the furthering of the ideology of secularism in the state. We believe that the state must stick to the principles laid down in the Constitution, specifically line 1 of the preamble to the Constitution, which states that we are a secular republic after all. Secularity is not something that is determined by who pays money and who gets resources. Well, as my opponents have spoken so eloquently, they speak about how they have conclusively proven that, places of worship should not be taxed, but I do not see how. Moving forward, as mentioned earlier, the assets must be treated like any other source of income and should be taxable. Taxation of all lands and properties belonging to religious trusts should be taxed proportional to their income, excluding that used for charitable purposes, which would fall under the ambit of the charitable tax laws. If I might quote Section 12, Article A of the Income Tax Act. Furthermore, government regulation in terms of their financial activities would prove to be beneficial in curbing illegal activities, while restricting the government to financial activities only to preserve the spirit of secularism. Thank you.
Okay. With that, we've concluded the debate. Judges, I'd just like you to remove your, like to give it to your attention that the proposition made 3 new points in the closing statements, and the opposition made 4 new points in the closing statements. And the factual, there was a factual from the proposition side, from the proposition side of view that Muslims are the only minority. They're not the only minority in India. Yeah.
We are the proposition. I never said they're a minority. I questioned why the opposition.
I said the opposition, not the proposition. Yeah. Judges, if
I
you
would
have
also
any
like
questions,
to point out another inaccuracy.
After the debate, let the judges ask you the questions first.
Oh.
Judges, if you all have any questions, please go ahead.
Yeah. I hope I'm audible. Yeah.
Yes, you are, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So I have one question to team proposition and one question to team opposition. So first, I will begin my question to team proposition. So team proposition says that all places of worship should be taxed. So let me give an example. In India, like most of the Indians, when they donate the money to the temple or a charitable trust which is closely related to a god, I mean, if I'm giving money, I'm not giving money to the temple. I'm giving money to the god. I have an emotional relation between them. Okay. So my only question is that how juridically you will prove that it should be taxed because I have a emotional relation between giving this money and not something which is I'm not looking the whole context into a tax point of view or economy or kind of how much that temple earns or something. So how do you prove that? It's something which is emotional thing which when I'm giving it the money to the temple. I don't think the temple is earning or something kind of.
Okay, thank you sir, for the question. So firstly, as we mentioned earlier, the money that is taken, all sort of money, the temple puts towards specific uses, irrespective of the emotion or the purpose for providing the money. Depending on the utilization and usage of the money by the temple and how it is audited, that is how it will be taxed, not on the basis of why it was given. If it's used for charitable purposes, it will not be taxed. However, it is used for its upkeep and other temple-related purposes, it will be taxed.
Oh, okay, thank you. My one question is to opposition. In your whole discussion, you are only talking about specific religion, that some religion has to do this, some religion has to do that. Can you tell me the another angle of this discussion? Because the topic of the debate was all places of worship should be taxed. I don't think so. Only the religion or communalism or specific group of people and specific temple or specific will come into this point. So can you give me another angle of this?
So the another angle of this is that a lot of financial practices are written down in the scriptures of different religions. For example, take Islam. They're not allowed to earn interest on money they have. It is haram. There is an entire financial system devoted to a Muslim, which is known as Islamic banking. Therefore, the laws that affect a general populace can have certain points of contention with different religious groups. Take Judaism, for example. They have no problem in earning interest. In fact, a lot of the Jews have amassed powers throughout history by being money lenders and earning interest. So financial implications for them would be very different as compared to financial implication on, say, a Muslim. That is why, sir, we were very community specific when we were talking about taxation.
Okay, thank you. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Ma'am, so you have any other questions, or will that be it?
No, I think that will be it.
Okay. Thank you so much. The results will be announced shortly.
Thank you.
Don't leave the meeting till we tell you to wait.
everyone. Welcome to the semi-finals of the Inter-Committee Debate 2020. The topic for today's debate is Islamophobia is an indirect result of repressing the community. We will now begin with the opening statements that will last for 2.5 minutes, first delivered by the proposition and then the opposition. We will proceed to the rebuttal round that will last for a total of 7 minutes. That will be in a question-answer format, first asked by the proposition and then the opposition. We will end with the closing statements that will last for 2.5 minutes, first delivered by the opposition and then the proposition. A few general rules. Warning bell will be rung at 30 seconds prior to the end of the stipulated time. 2 bells after the time has elapsed, and the participants will be expected to wrap up their speeches within the next 15 to 20 seconds. Participants, again, I urge you to refrain from crosstalk, use of personal pronouns, do not make any new points in your closing statements, and just summarize the debate. And of course, I urge you to maintain full decorum. And now we will begin the debate. Proposition, your opening statement.
The world today is besieged with a dominant sentiment of Islamophobia, which can be broadly understood as the fear of a particular religious community believing in Islam by those who do not. Today, we would like to speak in favor of the subject, which means I support the hypothesis that Islamophobia is a direct result of repressing the community. As per the latest census, Muslims constitute roughly 24% of the world's population and 15% of India's population. In both the world and in India, Muslims constitute the second largest religious community. Today, the entire world is made to believe that majority of the violence on account of conflicts and terrorist attacks is due to the people following Islam. However, I beg to differ. If we take simple statistics of the number of Muslims killed in airstrikes or military or paramilitary operations across the world, the figure is so much more higher than the number of people killed due to terrorism by Islamic groups. Have we ever counted the number of young children, women, civilians killed in Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, or several other Middle Eastern countries and other places? Today, the strong media controlled by the West and non-Muslim world has been giving us a one-sided view. And most of us have led to believe that every Muslim is not a terrorist, but every terrorist is a Muslim. Nothing can be more wrong than this gross representation of such facts. With so much hatred towards the community, the innocent and liberal-minded Muslims in the majority also feel isolated and are tempted to get radicalized. The only way to stop this menace from spreading is to target only the criminals and not the entire community. It is very easy to make the community a scapegoat for the sins of a few of them, which is certainly in no way going to solve the issue, but instead make it more complicated than it should be. Thank you.
Opposition?
Yeah, first of all, I would like to start off by saying that Islamophobia has ever been on the rise since the 9/11 terrorist attack on the World Trade Center. This attack actually shook the whole nation. In fact, the whole world was shook by these attacks. The subsequent rise in terrorist attacks have been dominated in the Western world with fear and their ludicrous ideologies and faith. One terrorist group in particular, termed as Jihadi Terror Group, also known as the ISIS, they first emerged onto the terror scene after the Iraq-US war in 2003 that took place. Today, they are performing terrorist plots against the whole world, against the whole Western world. The key examples that they have supported are the Paris attacks, the London bombings, and the Berlin Christmas market attacks. After the London bombings in 2005, the Muslims were to blame for the terrorism who carried out these attacks. The media targeted the whole Muslim community. There were violent outbursts against the Muslims throughout the UK, mostly in London. They consisted of verbal abuse, attacks, scrutiny upon their religious beliefs. But how and why has Islamophobia escalated so quickly? Due to this, the simple answer is the media. The media has the power to simplify complex solutions, often propagating fear instead of understanding. Not all newspapers hold biased opinions politically and have partial differences in their opinions. Some broadcasting corporations like BBC have unbiased opinions, non-political opinions. Poor media encouraged the word terrorist has become synonymous with the Muslims. Today, the word terrorist portrays the image of a radicalized Muslim holding a gun among the Western community. The media is known to exaggerate the truth and form stereotypes and cliches instead of actually giving the whole truth out in front of the people. They are the main source for the
So
world
10
news.
seconds, sir.
Therefore,
Please wrap up. Please wrap up your speech, sir.
people are highly influenced by their opinions. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now moving into the rebuttal rounds. So the first question by the proposition.
I have a question. So my question is that there are so many attacks, out of which many of them are not from Muslims in particular. But for example, Gandhiji, our leader, was also killed by not by a Hindu. Indira Gandhi was killed by a Sikh. And why is it that?
So please keep your questions short.
Yeah, sir. Then why is it that Islamophobia is on the rise as such? Why is the Muslim community that is targeted and not any other community?
So I would like to say that since the topic is the Islamophobia is an indirect result of repressing the community. You tell me, how can you repress someone who you are afraid of? Okay, so since you are afraid of someone, you don't do this. Although there is a tiny number of Muslim extremists who carry out these attacks, it's actually the media who is manipulating the innocent.
Your question, opposition to the proposition.
So, if this is a direct result of repression, why does it always increase incidents one after the other? The Muslim attacks, the terrorist attacks.
Could you please repeat the question?
Could you rephrase your question? Yeah. Could you rephrase your question, please?
If Islamophobia is an indirect result of repression of the community, why does it keep increasing again and again?
I'm sorry. So you're asking why?
Decreasing.
Increasing, it always
wait. No crosstalk. Participants, please, no crosstalk. Ma'am, I'll give you one last chance to rephrase your question in a manner that's more comprehensible to the proposition. So if you could do that, please.
Thank you very much.
Can I rephrase what she has said?
Yeah, please do. Please do.
Yeah. So basically, what she meant was that Islamophobia has always been on the increase. Like since the past year, 70% has been increased.
Please don't give context, sir. Please simplify the question, sir. No context.
Okay, why do you think Islamophobia has been on a hike ever since the attacks took place?
Fair question, sir.
Okay. So So Islamophobia has been on the rise mainly because after the 9/11 attacks, the USA was so shook with the magnitude at which they've come back at them that they've introduced more protocols to bar Muslims. Or so, like if you come into the United States on the airport, if you say you have a bearded look and a turban on your head, you are passing through a different security protocol as a whole, not passing through the same security protocol that others are passing through. So that when you even see that, you are saying, why is that particular person going through a security protocol that is different from my security protocol, which also instills a fear
Please wrap up your answer.
Yeah, which also instills a fear against that particular person, hence against that particular community.
So final question, proposition.
After the 9/11 attacks, there were so many attacks that were for the Muslims. People from the other communities were targeting Muslims, and so many people had died during that time. And most of them were innocent, and so many of them were repressed. So many of them were
concise questions.
Wrong looks.
Please, no context. No context. Concise, small questions.
Even because of a few of the people attacking, is it really worth spreading a phobia about the community for the entire other people of following Islam?
Thank you. The answer?
Ma'am, can you repeat your question, like a concise one?
Ma'am, it was audible and very concise. What she asked was, is it fair that you target the entire community for the misdoings of one particular section of people? Please give your answer. We're running out of time.
Ma'am, it's actually, we are not repressing the community. If people form an image after you do certain things, it was their deeds that made a mindset in the minds of the people. So it's very difficult to clear that image from their minds. So instead, people started staying away from there instead of repression. And if they are repressed, why do you think they come again and again and form bigger attacks every time?
Thank you. With that, we come to the end of the rebuttal round. We're now moving on to the closing statements. Opposition, your closing statement.
As we, yeah. As we mentioned, we cannot repress someone you are afraid of. Although the tiny number of extremists who carried out these attacks, it is actually the media who targeted the whole Muslim community. Poor media has encouraged the word terrorist, and the media has taken advantage of attacks and incidents all over the world, manipulated the innocent audience by portraying those who believe in Islam as terrorists and people who only do hurtful things. How do we know about the situation occurring across the globe? The media can manipulate whatever the story is, so don't assume that what is happening exactly. The audience, our citizens, get swayed away by our fourth pillar of democracy, that is the media, and has come to negative and only negative thoughts about Islam. It sometimes media can lead to the downfall of the society. Sometimes it's a rain, sometimes it's a blue. That's it.
Proposition, your closing statement.
In conclusion to what we said earlier, every criminal needs to be justified on the basis of whether or not they have done the crime or the severity of crime, not their religion. The sheer mental and physical torture Muslims go through, be it in France, India, China, is no laughing matter. It is so sad that people in the 21st century are still being suppressed only on the basis of their beliefs or ideologies. Is this really the world we want to live in, wherein an entire community bears the loss of so many family members who have been brainwashed to go against their own teachings and terrorize the world? Imagine what any mother whose son commits jihad to make their own country burn would go through. Even at times where she would want the other children to walk the right path, they aren't able to do so only because of the wrongdoings of a few people in their community. Instead of repressing the other community, our main objective should be providing a helping hand so that they can easily come out of the room. As quoted from a victim, every time they try to censor my faith, I will become more Muslim and rub the essence of who I am as if it was musk all over their prejudice. The Republic of Islam demonstrates peace and tolerance. This community does not deserve to be repressed for their wrongdoings by some of them.
15 seconds.
Blaming Islam for terrorism would be like blaming Christianity for colonialism. Hence, I would like to wrap up by saying the next time a Muslim family moves in next to you, we look at them with a more humane approach and not just by their religion. Thank you.
And with that, we come to the end of our debate. Dishna ma'am, if you have any questions to ask the participants, please do.
No, I think I really liked whatever the debate was. I don't have any specific question, but I think both the teams could work a little bit more on teamwork. But otherwise, I really liked it. Yeah.
A couple of things I'd like to bring to your notice. There have been two factual inaccuracies on both ends, the proposition as well as the opposition. The proposition has, also ma'am, could you please keep your camera off? We're trying to stream, so it's a little inconvenient.
I kind of dressed up so that, yeah, okay.
We're so sorry. So sorry.
It's fine, it's fine, yeah.
So as I was saying, there are two factual inaccuracies on both ends, the proposition as well as the opposition. There were 4 new points in the speech made by the opposition in the closing statement, which should be marked upon duly, and there were 2 new points introduced by the proposition. So kindly keep that in mind. And the factual inaccuracy that was made in the closing statement by the proposition was referring to something called the Republic of Islam. Ma'am, there is no such thing that exists. There is no Republic of Islam that exists in entirety. So please keep that in mind. Thank you so much for joining us. Participants, please don't leave. We'll let you know when you're done. Thank you.
Okay, so finally, welcome to the Intercommunity Debate 2020. We've reached the finals now. The topic for today is Unity in Diversity is a Myth in India. We will begin with the opening statement that will last for 3 minutes, first delivered by the proposition and then the opposition. Then we will head to the rebuttal round that will last for 8 minutes. That will be in a question answer format, first asked by the proposition and then the opposition. After that, we will end the closing statement that will last for 3 minutes, first delivered by the opposition and then the proposition. A warning bell will be rung 30 seconds prior to the end of the stipulated time. Two bells after the time has elapsed, and the participants are expected to wrap up in the next 15 seconds. Participants are urged to refrain from crosstalk, use of personal pronouns, to not make any new points in your closing statement, just summarize the debate, and urge you to maintain full decorum. Let's begin the debate. Proposition, your opening statement.
Greetings to the moderators, the opposition, and to the audience in attendance. The proposition, inclusive of Swaditya and Anish, will be providing arguments in support of the agenda for the discussion. Unity in diversity is a myth in India. The phrase unity in diversity is a deliberate oxymoron, the rhetorical combination of two antonyms. In a multi-ethnic country like India, extracting a common national identity out of the numerous distinct social identities is a cumbersome task. India, in spite of its rich cultural heritage and glorious past in terms of one of the great ancient civilizations, today somehow lacks in offering an unified identity milieu for its citizens. The various subcategories of caste, class, ethnic, and linguistic groups dominate the identity of Indians. The question which arises at this point is why, in spite of being one of the world's largest democracies, Indians lag in fulfilling the constitutional prerequisite of equality and fraternity. The US Commission on International Religious Freedom classified India as Tier 2 in persecuting religious minorities. For those who do not know, that is at the same level as that of Iraq or Egypt. In today's day and age where polarization is at its highest, the best thing to do is acknowledge we have a problem. We are not united as a result of our diverse nature, and people need to be educated on how, despite our differences, we are very similar, and people with ulterior motives, the ones in power and the ones who dream of having political relevance, use divisive and communal politics to harm the harmony people would have had their minds not been colored by such people. India claims an abiding commitment to human rights and religious freedoms, but its record is marred by continuous violations by security forces in counterinsurgency operations and by government failure to rigorously implement laws and policies to protect marginalized communities. A vibrant media and civil society continue to press for improvements, but without tangible signs of success. The topic of secularism has become questionable. Comfortable elimination of minorities in legislation is a precursor to many more biased and prejudiced laws present in the drawing board. Thank you.
Yeah, could you just repeat the law that you mentioned?
Which law would you be speaking about?
The first one that you mentioned. UN
I'm
wala.
speaking about
The United Nations one, yeah.
No, there was no that was the US CIRF, the US Commission on International Religious Freedom. US.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Opposition, your opening statement.
Greetings to the proposition. And the moderator. The first thing I would like to take into account that India is a home to a pluricultural civilization, which polity is organized around the founding belief of unity in diversity. The idea of pluralism survived a traumatic partition in 1947, which created India and Pakistan and went on to provide on the basis for the constitutional framework within which peoples have had multiple identities were to be accommodated within the Indian Union, with statutory guarantees for safeguarding their rights as individuals and as groups. We Indians have a distinguishing feature of tolerance and universal brotherhood, which has been promoting unity in diversity since ages. We have never attacked or forced anyone to follow a certain thing. Instead, we have accepted whoever comes to us with great hospitality. India is India because of its very attitude, and thus leaves us with a significant imprint on the world that unity in diversity is not at all a myth in India. When diverse attributes combine, they give a rise to an outstanding brilliance and geniusness, as highlighted by the Chinese scholar Sun Tzu. There are not more than 5 musical notes, yet the combination of these five give rise to more melodies than can ever be heard. There are not more than 5 primary colors, yet in the combination they produce more hues that can ever be seen. There are not more than 5 cardial tastes, yet the combination yield more flavors than can ever be tasted. Thank you.
Okay, with that we head to the rebuttal round. Proposition, your first question.
Could the opposition provide any actual several mass instances of unity and diversity apart from metaphors regarding colors and music?
Opposition, your answer.
Sir, do you remember the Anna Hazare movement where the entire country came together irrespective of who they were to stand against the corruption in the country? So I think that's what I would like to say.
Okay. Opposition, your question with the proposition.
So history has been evident that whenever there is an attack on our country, people come and stand together. When there was the Pulwama attack, the entire country condemned it. So how do you justify that there is no unity in the country?
Unity in diversity is not a once in a moment thing that arises when threatened. It is supposed to be eternal, which is not existent in our country. Nationalism that surges because an external enemy is attacking is not true unity in diversity. It is a necessity of the moment to unite to oppose the external enemy. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Okay. Proposition, your question to the opposition.
If I might ask, the opposition spoke about how there was a traumatic partition of our country in 1947, which is obviously extremely true. But I would ask, how is it relevant in furthering your cause? As in, how does it highlight that unity is greater, because unity in diversity is maintained? Because
get to the question.
Yeah, my question is, how does it highlight or further your cause? Because India and Pakistan are still at loggerheads, according to your
You're
stance.
still not asked the question. I don't want context over it. Just ask the question and that's it.
Right. How does it further your cause?
So the partition was really a traumatic experience. There was a ridge that was driven between the two nations. There were literally two groups that were divided, and there were a few people, there were few refugee people who were a small group of people that were actually stuck in the middle. And as saying that both of the sides, like the India as well as Pakistan, showed unity and diversity and took them under their wing, showed them the warmth and welcomeness of the partition, like to ease out the traumatic experience and to take the precautions that were necessary. And yeah, that's it. So basically, they took them under the wing, and it was greatly beneficial for both of us, both of the nations.
Okay. Opposition, your question to the proposition? No,
just a clarification.
After,
clarification.
Not now. Opposition, your question to the proposition.
So the opposition said about coming together only in the times of a problem. So, sir, are you not surviving in a country with your classmates who are from different parts of the country? Are you not getting along with them? Is that not what is unity in diversity?
Proposition, your answer.
Yeah, I would like to mention that unity and diversity is not a singular case relevant or subject to me because I'm living in a metro city surrounded by individuals. However, the case can be furthered by providing examples of citizens out there in the nation, all throughout the nation, on social media, the deaths, the hate crimes, the riots, the violence, the intolerance for religious defamation and the propagation of the same in terms of secularity or secularism. That is not unity and diversity in my eyes.
Okay. We have time for one more question. So, proposition, your question.
Okay, will it be a question to the proposition or opposition?
The proposition is going to ask a question to the opposition.
Right. Okay, so my question lies on the same topic as before. There were instances during the partition.
I do not want context. I just want the question. I'll repeat it again.
Okay. I would like further clarification on your answer that you have presented before.
I asked for a new question. That question was already answered. If you have any other question, then
new question.
Go ahead.
Okay.
It could be said that the external forces of British were the reason for the partition. However, if it is truly, as you believe, there was a unity in diversity, how did the country separate?
You're giving me context. You're not giving me the question.
How could you justify the partition of a country into Pakistan and India if the people were truly united?
Okay. Opposition answer.
Sir, I think the proposition is stuck in the past. We are in a debate right now talking about unity and diversity. Right now in India, what's the sense of asking about something that happened 60, 70 years ago?
Okay, that's your answer? Yeah, okay. Opposition, your final question to the proposition.
Sir is talking about hate crimes and also there is a population of 1.3 billion people. If 10 lakh people are spreading hate
Again, you're giving
crime,
me context. I've made it very clear. I only want the question.
Okay. The ratio of people spreading hate crimes and the ratio of the united country is, I think, a great ratio. So what do you think about that? That the इंडिया खोना हो, हम सबके खून में देश का नमक जरूर है. Unity in diversity is used as an expression of unity and harmony among individuals or groups belonging to different backgrounds or following different practices. India is the best example to prove the concept of diversity and unity in diversity. Being a 5,000-year-old civilization, it is a land of rich diversities. People, despite belonging to different backgrounds, respect each other and live like brothers, calling each other Miya Bhai or Mota Bhai. इतिहास गवाह है कि जब देशों के बीच मतभेद हुए हैं, पूरा राष्ट्र एक साथ खड़ा हुआ है, ये भूल के कि वो कौन है, वो कहां से आया है और वो क्या धर्म मानता है. We are actually different shades of the same color. The country homes almost all religions of the world and is a birthplace to few of them. People come together not only in things like the World Cup, but also have stood united against anti-corruption movement like the Anna Hazare movement. In India, the national integration alone can be a foundation of a strong, united, prosperous India, especially in these days of extremism and terrorism. Mahatma Gandhi sacrificed his life for communal unity. Though there are Bengalis, Gujaratis, Punjabis, Maharashtrians, etc. in our country, the fact remains that regardless of divisions and distinctions, caste or creed, we have lived together for thousands of years. India is a large country. Different religions observe variations in climate. The spoken language of every state is different. They wear different types of clothes. They celebrate different festivals and perform varied religious rites. People belonging to diverse culture, belonging to different regions in India. In spite of these diversities, Indians feel a sense of unity and oneness amongst them. The people of this country celebrate more than 30 major festivals of various religions, cultures, and community. Even after numerous attempts to instigate and divide the country, the fact that India is still standing strong shows how strong our unity is. So, when Shah Rukh Khan said, "मुझे states के नाम ना दिखाई देते हैं, ना सुनाई देते हैं, सिर्फ एक मुल्क का नाम सुनाई देता है," we all felt that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Proposition, your closing statement.
The proposition wishes to draw the debate to conclusion by remarking that the opposition seeks strength in flowery words, metaphors, and celebrities to prove the argument because they have no conclusive argument to prove. They have simply been dodging questions put forth by the proposition, such as the partition, which they themselves had raised, because the truth is there is no diversity present in the country. As mentioned earlier in the statements and through the discourse and the rebuttal, there are laws, the culture, which prove that unity is not possible in a country such as India with so many ethnic tensions and variations. Furthermore, the questions raised during the rebuttal, such as the propaganda spread by media and the intolerance, there were no answers provided by the opposition, meaning there is no answer to that. There is no unity in the country, even in today's state. I wish to end my statement soon because the point has been clearly made and the opposition has been clearly dodging the questions of unity, for there is no unity in this country. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would like to ask the judges if they have any questions for the participants.
Okay. I have a question with the opposition first. So can you give me two parameters on which you are evaluating the unity and diversity in our country? Any two parameters? Opposition.
The two parameters that we would be taking, like how our country follows different customs, traditions, speak different languages. They also differ in dress code, and food habits. In spite of so many differences, people have a feeling of oneness. The unity that we have in our country is so strong that it cannot be broken. They are bound by a common
parameters you're giving. What did you say? Just give me two parameters. Don't explain.
The oneness of the people, that's a parameter, and like the traditions and how they come together in case of an emergency that arises. Like how
and then they give you a solution after arising together.
Yes, they stand all together, ma'am. They stand all together, support each other's whatever decisions they have taken, and stand by as one, as an unbreakable wall.
Okay. Preposition. Can you use these parameters and justify your point on how it is still the same as you stand on the point with these parameters?
All right, ma'am. If I'm not mistaken, the first parameter was oneness, which is the most vague thing in the planet. If it's meant to define unity, the topic clearly says it is not. So I'm not sure how that can be considered a parameter of oneness. It cannot be quantified. Secondly, the opposition talked about how the people get together for a particular instance. That is true. That is acknowledged. But that's not unity and diversity. The momentary nationalism is not what unity and diversity is all about. It's about the mutual respect and importance and the rights that people have and live with peacefully all along, and not just getting together at one point of time.
No, he didn't say one point of time. He said that his point was different people getting together. Not exactly at one point of time, just say, but getting together will that be unity and diversity for you?
Yes, but the fact is that is a very momentary lived.
Getting together. He's specifying culture and religion. So is unity and diversity does it belong to the different cultures and religions getting together? Forget it's one incidence.
The definition of it is the getting together of people of all religions. That is the very definition of unity and diversity. But however, it should be long lasting to be called actual unity and diversity. right? Otherwise, it's just getting together against something if it is not long lasting, which is something that I've experienced in this country.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Prathamesh sir, do you have any questions for the participants?
Yeah, I have one question. I mean, there's a common question to both the team, but I'll first ask to preposition team. Yeah, so you said that unity in diversity is with in whole discussion I was listening. Both the teams have stick to religion and culture is one of the aspect. Even talk about unity and diversity. I remember when there was subject civics 9-10 standard, unity and diversity clearly mentioned it is beyond even culture and religion. If somebody is a stand-up comedian and somebody is a researcher across different countries, if somebody is maybe though he's you can say a handicap, but proves himself to be a good artist, okay, where we all are despite of having everything, and maybe some person on some other area. I guess unity and diversity can be in emotions also. Unity and diversity can be our behavior also, and unity and diversity in all aspects. But in nowhere you have mentioned both the teams, and nobody, everybody's talking about culture, everybody's talking about religion. I guess we, the youth of the team, should be above all these things and think about different aspect also. So I want to know the your thoughts on this aspect. First proposition and then opposition.
So yes, sir, what you're saying is absolutely right. Unity and diversity is not just religion or culture; it's varied. And the fact is, our planet, the entire civilization as a whole, has advanced in that manner. There is unity and diversity when it comes to professionalism or different works or jobs or age groups. That is existent all over the world. However, the one point where it differs is religion and culture. Because of the ethnic traditions and practices, there is a difference that is irrefutable and people cannot come to terms with it. Whereas in a professional scenario, people are able to live by with something. But in a country like India, where there is secular call, there are personal laws, and there is some codified laws, people feel singled out because they belong to a particular community or religion. And that is the very reason we have been talking about that point only throughout this debate, because in other fields, I believe that we have evolved to a greater level of unity, except in this one. Thank you, sir.
Opposition, I'll ask you to please keep your answer short because we are running out of time.
Yes, sir. Sir, I wanted to say that India is a very religious country. So, if it is very important to focus on these points, India is known for like all those hate crimes that happen is because of religion, caste, and customs. So, it is very important to focus. When we go to educated people, these things I think don't matter to the youth. If I talk about myself, it doesn't matter to them. Religion is not a thing we focus on. We are focusing on greater things. It was the topic, the need of the topic. That's why we focused on specific points. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Okay, with that we conclude the debate. I would like to tell the judges that the opposition has made 5 new points in their closing statement, and there were 2 factual inaccuracies in the proposition's opening statement. That's it. With that, we conclude the debate. The results will be announced shortly. Thank you so much.